Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today I'm going to be tackling another Rotted request, this time put out by patron Catherine, who wanted me to watch and review the 2022 film Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Catherine's reasoning for this is, I think the end really made this one, and so I ended up loving it despite its flaws. That and its good dumb fun, and I thought maybe you could use a little of that right now. True enough. Indeed I could, and indeed I did, and this was actually my second watch of this film, and I enjoyed it just as much. This is one of those movies, and for those of you new to the channel, I'm not going to be doing any spoilers here, but what I will say is that this is the kind of movie that definitely has an ending that lends itself to a different experience on its second viewing. So I was happy to give this one another look-see, this time watching it through the lens of already knowing what I knew, and it definitely made for a different, but at the same time, I think just as enjoyable film. Written by Sarah Delap and Kristen Ropinian and directed by Helena Rehn, this is a film that takes place at a large mansion with a group of friends that are celebrating a hurricane. A hurricane is swooping in, and they decide to get together and just have a little bit of a hurrah, a little bit of a party, and they're old friends getting together. There's a couple of plus ones attached that are introduced to the group and so forth. And everything is going fairly well. I mean, I guess as fairly well as can be possible during a hurricane that causes blackouts and so forth. But regardless, they're drinking and enjoying each other's company. There's some barbed compliments and things like that kind of floating around that indicate that there's definitely some history and so forth that people are kind of putting under the surface. But other than that, everything seems okay. And then they start playing Bodies, 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 which is a party game in which somebody is the hidden killer that is going around killing people, and when somebody dies, they have to figure out what happened, who the killer is in the room, and so on and so forth, which is all well and good until somebody is in actuality found dead. And the game of Bodies, Bodies, Bodies starts becoming a real thing as accusations, backstabbing are abound, leading to one mishap after another, and more Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. So this is a film that I think it tackled a lot of things in a unique fashion, but at the same time, it really did a lot of elements at the very least remind me of past films that I've seen, most notably the 2015 movie titled Body and the 2018 Into the Dark episode, New Year, New You. And all of these have the same kind of similar circumstances of a group of lifelong friends getting together for one celebration or another, and exploring the concept of the hidden nature of all the grudges and grievances and so forth that are present under that friendship when things get really out of control. In the case of Bodies, 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 it is exasperated by the aforementioned hurricane causing the aforementioned blackouts, and just tensions are really rising. And there's a strong element in play of a lot of giddiness that kind of comes forth in the merriment of the audience by watching these terrible people interact with each other in terrible fashion. I dare say, I don't think that there was a singular character in this film that I found to be truly 100% likable. Mostly it was awful people doing awful things to each other. And that's a tricky thing to kind of pull off. And I know that this movie can be a bit divisive, and I think that this is one of those elements that causes that divisiveness, is when you do have a film that's primarily made up of awful characters, it can be a little bit of a tough thing to rally behind. It's a very razor's edge thing to go through as a filmmaker in a way that you want to keep the audience engaged, you want to keep them in the film with these people, but at the same time, these people by their very nature are wanting you to just leave. So then it kind of comes into play of just the fun of watching them backstab each other and just go through these paces and suffer the consequences of their ill character. And that's the tightrope. And I think that this film, for me at the very least, walked that fairly well. Not perfectly, but fairly well. I do think that Catherine was right when she did mention the flaws that this movie had, and I think that a lot of that does come down to where on that tightrope this movie chose to walk at any given time. There were some elements in the pacing, especially towards the last third of the movie, I would say, that does explore a lot of these characters and the self-diagnosing, buzzword throwing out nature to them.
I've never actually said this to anyone, but I have body dysmorphia.
Oh my God, shut the fuck up, Alice.
When we do have on one hand a lot of infighting and on the other hand a lot of bashing of heads, I think that there did wind up just being a little bit too much infighting and a little bit more bashing of heads was necessary to balance that out. But nevertheless, I did find this to be a fun movie overall. I would put this more into the camp of dark comedy more than horror. I don't think there was really any elements of it that were scary, frightening, terrorizing, dreadful, anything along those lines. But I did find it to be a fun, gory, funny mess, which I think was almost the point of it. It was designed to be a mess, but at the same time, within that messiness, there is a bit of focus that was pulled just well enough to actually lead to a surprising and coherent end. So it was a purposeful mess that I think worked out relatively well. So I'm very grateful to Catherine for bringing this one up for me to review here, and I have to agree on pretty much every point that she brought up. It was flawed, it was fun, and the ending absolutely made it worth it. So I do recommend Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Even if the characters are grating on your nerves, I do kind of recommend just sticking with it because that's almost the point. The ending itself does yield fruit and does kind of bring the whole journey together in a way that I, at the very least, found very satisfying. So thank you very much to Catherine, and thank you for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. What were your thoughts on Bodies, Bodies, Bodies? Leave comments below. I'd love to read them and engage with you. So that should about do it. Thank you so much for joining me. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.